We are so honored to welcome our 19th WNBA or future WNBA player or coach on this 5th day of Birth Defects Prevention Month, the pride of Port Gibson, Mississippi, Yolanda Moore. After attending Port Gibson High School, she stayed in state and attended Ole Miss, where she was a 2-time first-team All-SEC player for the Rebels. She played in the WNBA for 3 seasons and won 2 WNBA titles with the Houston Comets. Interestingly, the Houston Angels won the first ever WBL title, the first ever women's basketball league in the history of the United States. Peggy Gillum-Granderson, as we just talked about, also attended Ole Miss, and she, along with the other board members of the WBL, were on our show in our first episode of season 3. She played with the likes of Cheryl Swoops, Tina Thompson, Cynthia Cooper, and Cherie Sam, who was also on our podcast. She coached both boys and girls, and speaking of children, she has 4 of her own. In addition to her undergraduate degree at Mississippi, Moore has a master's degree in workforce educational leadership from Alcorn State University and later enrolled at Mississippi State University to pursue a PhD in instructional systems and workforce development. She's an international author and motivational speaker. She did some broadcasting for the Memphis Grizzlies. And she shares a birthday with Princess Diana and Carl Lewis, and was born the same year as Leonardo DiCaprio, Jimmy Fallon, Ryan Seacrest, Derek Jeter, Ben Wallace, Steve Nash, and Jewel. You can find her on Instagram at Yolanda_Moore. And so honored that you're joining us here in the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table, especially the women of the W and the ABL. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I love your shirt. She's got a Tupac shirt on for those of you listening. So you and I were just talking before the intro about the fact that the 50th anniversary of Title IX is coming up. And, we talk about this a lot on the show, and this is important to me as someone, you have children. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and girls quit more than boys, and coaches played a huge role in my life, especially after my dad committed suicide when I was 9. And so if it wasn't for the youth coaches, especially the men that I had as father figures, and one of them in particular was a gentleman of color, Mr. Emanuel, and the late Richard Maltz, they, even though I was small, I wasn't really that talented, they believed in me. And how was your experience because you were sort of on the cusp of when there was a shift with girls and women's sports, but how was it for you growing up?
Honestly, because I grew up in such a small town, I didn't know that there was a disparity for anything. Honestly, we had one elementary school, one middle school, one high school, and you played all the sports, you did all the things. If I wanted to go and practice with the guys, I could. I ran track, I did basketball. So when you're a kid and you're growing up single parent home, you have frustrations, you don't know how to articulate them. And you find something where you can get your confidence and your self-esteem and all of these things. And so you put all of your energy into that. And for me, it was sports. It was basketball and track, and later just basketball.
So that's interesting. You just mentioned that in passing, because, I was in a single parent household also. And just to your point, there's 2 points that you just made that we have sort of parallel universes that we lived in, because I was integrated in 5th grade. So I went from a private Jewish day school to, I guess you would say it's inner city Detroit. I mean, it's right on the cusp of 8 and 9 Mile right there, Eminem in the house. But anyways, so everyone accepted everybody. I didn't know any difference. And the only time I knew anything different was when I got older.
Right.
And so probably similar to your case, which is what I want to ask you about in a second. But the other thing is, obviously, because my father committed suicide and just, other issues growing up in that type of household, I was a pissed off kid. I mean, I was smashing my tennis rackets. I was cussing at my grandfather. And so how did you, because sports saved me, do you feel like that was the same thing for you because of the things that you just talked about in terms of navigating a single parent household? Do you feel like sports saved you, or was it friends or siblings, or what was it?
Definitely not siblings. I grew up and I didn't meet so I'm the youngest of 6 on my mom's side. And I have a different father from all of them. And I didn't even meet my father until I was 18. So there was a lot of, there were a lot of issues that I had with regard to belonging and feeling a part of, and feeling like I was a mistake, or being told that I was a mistake. I was the mistake baby. And just wanting to get their approval and validation. And so basketball gave me my identity. Basketball gave me a sense of value and a sense of self-worth. And I became really good at it. I sucked when I first started. Like, I was the worst player ever, but I kept with it because it was so much fun, and it was an escape for me. I could let out all of that bad energy, so if you will, into a space, and I could see myself becoming better. So I could see myself being good at something. And that was all mine. That was all Yolanda. And so that's, if you want to say that it saved me, it helped to give me an identity. It helped to shape who I was. It helped to shape, it gave me a sense of hope. It gave me a sense of pride in myself. It gave me, again, a good, healthy dose of self-esteem, because of who I was on the basketball court was in total contrast to who I was off of it. Like, I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up. I was the most popular kid in school only because I was such a standout athlete, but I would spend my recess in class with my teacher, because I didn't know from day to day if this group of girls was going to talk to me or this group. And then the guys, I was taller than everybody. So unless we were playing sports, it was that. So it helped to give me a sense of value and a sense of self-worth that was so very needed at that age. But of course, as we grow and our identity is so tied into the sport, and then when we don't have the sport anymore, it's like we're starting over. We're at a loss of, we don't have a sense of self. We don't know who we are. And so we have to learn ourselves all over again. So that was kind of my journey, if you will, when it came to sports.
Wow. So, man, that was powerful. Appreciate you sharing that. How was it when you met your dad for the first time when you were 18?
So the weird thing is that I knew him. I just didn't know he was my dad. So when I was told that, I would say the thing that bothered me the most was the fact that he knew. And he at the time was married to someone else, and or not at that time when I met him, but I guess whenever I was conceived, was married to someone else and raising that person's daughter. It wasn't his daughter. And his words to me were, I knew about you, but I had my own family. I basically in a nutshell, these were his words, and I didn't want you. So that was the hardest. That was the hardest part, but I wasn't like upset with my mom or anything like that for keeping it from me. I trusted her. I believed, you do what you feel is best as a parent, or either that, or I was too naive to be upset, with her. But it was definitely a turning point, so to speak. But it was right during the summer when I was getting ready to start college at Ole Miss. So you just bury the feelings. I didn't really process it. If I'm honest, I didn't process it until like later in my late 20s, early 30s.
Wow. Burying it is a good way to put it. A lot of people bury things, and we talk a lot about it on the show, and you brought it up in the Black and brown community, because there are either things that you get roasted for or things that are taboo, especially back then. And I wouldn't necessarily say that was a mental health issue, but that was
it was
on some level a mental health issue, to try and navigate that space when, you're just not ready to navigate that space. I mean, that's just not something, you're ready for.
And you don't even know that you're experiencing a reaction or a response to that. You don't even realize that, you don't even know. And you start looking for things to fill a void that you're unaware that you even have. And you don't know where the attitude is coming from. You don't know where the promiscuity is coming from. You don't know where the cursing or the anger is coming from. You just know that you are today on Tuesday, right? So Again, that's why I said it. And then as an athlete, you're taught to have a next level, a next play mentality. Like you just move on from one thing to the next because, as a basketball player, any athlete during the games, there are ups and downs, there are highs and lows. You can't allow yourself to get caught up in it emotionally or you'll miss out. The next play, the play that's happening now is the most important, not the one that just happened, because there's nothing you can do about it anyway. So you adopt that, and that's been ingrained in you since you were a child as an athlete. And because my identity was so tied into who I was as an athlete, that became my way of dealing with things, quote unquote, is just to have a next play mentality. You put it down, you bury it, unbeknownst to you, it comes out in other ways in your life and you don't know what's going on, right? So that was my experience.
So we're going to talk about how that came out in other ways in a second, but I want to ask you, obviously you had a successful high school career. Mm-hmm. I'm always interested to know, because I'm a professional basketball skills trainer. I've been coaching 30 years. But I always love to hear about the recruiting process, because I just, obviously you're in state, you stayed in state, but how was that part for you? Did you take all your official visits? Who else was in the mix?
I took them all. Yeah, I was recruited by everybody.
Yeah.
And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Of course, the SEC schools were on me pretty tough.
Yeah.
Because I was in the South, and like how kids are ranked and ranked in all this, like I didn't even know that I was ranked. Like I didn't know any of that stuff until after I finished my high school, like at the end of my senior year. Yeah. And you're getting all these awards. And I'm like, I had never even heard of the Gatorade Player of the Year. I knew nothing about USA Today All-American. Like how they find me, I'm all the way in Port Gibson. Like, I don't know.
Street I knew Smith.
Nothing about, right. I knew nothing about any of those things. So of course, back then, and I can't say that this is all kids today, but back then you played because number one, it was a way for you to go to college for free. And number two, you play for the love of the game. Like that was the reward. I get to play this sport because I love it and I'm good at it. Like not because somebody's dangling a carrot and, or there's no outward incentive. It's just, this is me. I hold myself accountable. These are the standards I set for myself. I want to go out. I want to give my all to it because I love it. Like, it's like being in a relationship. When you want it to work, you give your all, you give your best. So it's the same thing. Back then we got a lot of letters. I don't think they do letters anymore. I know when I coached, we didn't really do letters, but I used to get letters every single day. We used to get the phone calls. And I signed early just because I wanted all the phone calls to stop. Like I just wanted it over. So I signed during the early period in my senior year. So that way I could focus. Yeah. Like I didn't like all of that. I wasn't the kid that, I get off on all these coaches calling me or coming to my school. It was annoying to me, if I'm honest.
So who did it come down to?
It came down to Ole Miss and Mississippi State, Alabama, and I was high on Georgia. And the only reason I took Tennessee off the list was because I knew I couldn't start as a freshman and I wanted to play immediately. So it would have been like 2 years before I had gone. And she was honest about it, before I saw any playing time. And again, that was I looked at where can I go and have an immediate impact? Where can I go and play like right away? And Ole Miss was the best fit for me. I knew some of the players who were there because I played AAU basketball with them. It wasn't too far away from home, but it was close enough. Like it was away. I was away at college, but I was close enough that if something happened, my mom could get to me, without having to get on a plane, so that was important to me. And Ole Miss back then, they were ranked in the top 5 in the country. Like they had gone to like the Elite 8. So they were a solid squad. And, I just wanted to be a part of that. So it was easy for me. That was an easy choice for me.
That's cool. That's so interesting. And so we had one of the other guests that we had on, she played at Ole Miss. She played at Ole Miss for one of her games. And so she talked about how during one of the games, she was called the N-word, which, still goes on today. So it's not a surprise. And so how was your experience there? We'll talk about, that you were a mother. early in life, sort of like my mom when she was 18, and how that played into it, and the support system that, you had, as a mom while you were still in college, right? And so I'm interested to hear how that whole experience was.
I had a good experience at Ole Miss. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was because I was an athlete, like we were athletes, so we were shielded from any of the racial stuff that was going on. Like I saw it, but I never experienced it directed towards me or any of the people who I
Played with, yeah.
played with.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
but I know that it happened. I mean, there were incidents. There weren't any significant incidents, but there were just little small incidents. If anything, there was more discrimination towards being an athlete versus being a student, because Ole Miss considers itself to be the Harvard of the South. And so you had some professors who did not, they were reluctant to accommodate your travel schedule just because you were an athlete and things like that. So I experienced some of that more so than any of the racial stuff.
Wow.
And mind you, now this was back in the 90s.
Right.
We had professors who, probably walked with Moses, who were
right
still. So it was just a different mindset, a different culture. But I had a good experience at
that's wonderful. Who did you enjoy playing the most in terms of crowds, like shutting up the crowds when you were on the road?
Anybody. Anybody in the
Man.
SEC. But of course, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama back then, Auburn was really good, Florida, like anybody in the SEC. But of course, Tennessee, they've always had like amazing fans. We never beat them there. We beat them in Ole Miss, but we never beat them in Thompson Bowling Arena or the Pat. Is it even still Thompson Bowling Arena? And then Georgia, because back then, again, we had like 8 teams deep that were NCAA teams. And we didn't have, there was Texas A&M wasn't in our conference. Missouri wasn't in our conference.
That's right. Yeah.
Back then. So it wasn't as many teams, but the SEC was the toughest conference in the country. And still to this day, in my opinion. And it was different. Like the SEC teams were more like those blue collar teams, those really, really workhorse. We had those traditional 1 through 5 positions, right? Like our centers were centers, our point guards were point guards. It's not like, and then when you went to the East Coast, it was more of a kind of like a up and down, fast paced game. And then you go to West Coast, it was more finesse and things like that. So we kind of were like that get in the grime, just grimy, just get down to it, that hard nosed blue collar work, which I love.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk about going to football games. How was that experience? Did you love going? Oh man,
Ole Miss has the best tailgating. The football experience is like you don't go, like unless you're a football fan, which I don't know enough about the game to be a fan. I just knew guys who played, so you go to the games to support them, and then you go for the food in the Grove. Right? So those were always exciting, and of course, as being an athlete, you get carte blanche. You can go to different tailgating tables or tents or whatever, and just kind of have your pick. So it was, I had a great time at Ole Miss. Like I had a full college experience.
That's amazing. So part of your college experience involved you being a mom.
Yeah.
And so before you were 22, you had 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how did you navigate all of that? Like, tell everyone about that. That's just incredible to me that you were able to balance everything, being a student athlete and being a mom, and holy moly.
Well, my mom, she's deceased now, but she was alive at the time. And she just said, just promise me that you'll graduate and I'll support you. Because my freshman year, I had, I tore my meniscus in my right knee. So I had to have surgery. And then like maybe a couple months after that, I found out I was pregnant. And I was all set to quit. Like I had called Alcorn State, which was like in my backyard. It was a SWAC school. I talked to the coach, Coach Walker at the time, and, talked about transferring so I could be home with my kid. And I had made all the plans. And my mom was like, nope, we're not having that. And The coaching staff was very supportive. My family was supportive. My teammates were supportive. And so I was able to stay. It was hard because I couldn't stay on the weekends and hang out like the other players. With my daughter being back home, I had to go home on the weekends. I couldn't play in the summer, like try out for the Olympics and things like that, because I had to either in summer school a semester and then home a semester. So it was challenging, but I think it just motivated me even more to keep going. I never even though I planned to quit Ole Miss or leave Ole Miss, I had no intention of quitting basketball ever. So I was just grateful that the coaching staff, Coach Chancellor, Peggy, and all of them were so supportive and allowed me to keep my scholarship and still be able to play.
I'm a Hall of Famer and Coach Chancellor. And we talked a lot about all those Hall of Fame coaches from back then who paved the way for women's athletics and Title IX, and amazing that you got a chance to play for him. And do you think, you talked about Elkhorn State, do you think that there's going to be any kind of shift with recruiting with HBCs, or do you think we're going to continue down, the Power Five road?
I think so. I think it's going to be a slow trickle, but I think so, because now with the NIL opportunities, the money goes where the athletes go. And all companies care about is what their following numbers are on social media. They don't care if they're the star player,
Absolutely.
And so it helps when you have what Deion Sanders is doing at Jackson State. It's no different than what SEC schools or Power Five schools have been doing. They take recruits all the time. It's just different. It's always been a money game. It's always been, I'm a former coach, so kids like shiny things. And when you can offer them shiny things and when they can get more, they're going to go. It may not even be a good fit for them, but I can get 4 pair of shoes. I can get 8 sweatsuits. I get a cost of attendance check. I can travel here. We're going to Hawaii. I don't even care about whether or not it's a good fit for me. I don't even know if the coach is really, fits his or her leadership styles fit my personality. I just want to go where the things are. And now that's not the case. The money goes where the athletes are. And so educationally, I got a degree from Ole Miss. I got a degree from Alcorn. I've gotten, a specialist degree from Mississippi State. I'm in my doctoral program. Amazing. It's all education. And when I started working with Amazon, neither of my degree, like the institution where my degree came from didn't even matter. All they wanted to know, was your degree conferred? Right. So I don't, I think the playing field is leveled a lot more than it has been. And then with social media too, kids can post games and they can post clips of their games, and they can, they can be seen by they can get picked up on ESPN. They can be seen by overseas scouts. So right now I don't think that it's as much of a deterrent as it was for back when I was coming up. If it was now and I had the chance to play for Jackson State women's basketball team, I would still go play for an HBCU, especially one that was doing really well and that was competing against top tier teams. And I felt like, look, if we can go in and we can beat, because all it takes is one team to beat one of those, one HBCU team, regardless of what level or what conference, to beat one of those Power Five teams. It's like nobody. Once the guy ran the 4-minute mile, now everybody runs the 4-minute mile, right? So it's kind of like that thing. Once Connecticut, UConn got beat, then they started taking a couple L's. Not many, but they started taking L's, because you see it can be done. So I just think that it's going to take just one HBCU team, whether it be and TSU men's team beat Florida. And that was at Florida, and that was a guaranteed game. So I think that a lot of things have opened up to the advantage of HBCUs. They've just got to have the right people at the helm. Of course, with Deion. Who wouldn't? If I was a football player, I would be the water boy. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Around him, just to be in the company of the people that he's able to bring to that school and expose them to, so I think once you get the right person in the, in those spaces who have the heart for the kids and who are going to fight and advocate for them, then yeah, I think you'll see a lot more top players going to HBCU schools. At least you should. And then, of course, they've got to do some upgrades to their facilities. They've got to understand that there's something that they've got to do on their end. But I think that it's opening. I think it'll be a slow trickle, but I think it's happening nonetheless.
I know that's a football example of Dion, but Coach Jackson's at Grambling now. He was on our show, and Eddie George, at Tennessee State. And so, if football can help women's basketball and bring some notoriety, and like you said, the resources need to be improved, right? There are not the same types of resources at HBCs, most of them that are in the Power Five. So that would certainly help. But that's interesting that you said that. And so you coached.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk about your coaching before we talk about your time as a professional, and because we're talking about coaching a little bit, but I'm always interested to hear from a coach's perspective, because I'm old school, but I'm new school, right? I'm pretty progressive. I've always sort of tried to stay ahead of the curve. As a professional skills trainer, I like the current game, and I was somebody who started to play like they play now back in the early 90s. Crafty, positionless, as much as I could be positionless at 5'7". But, I just sort of like the game the way it is. But I also like on the women's side, the true post player.
Yeah.
And so I like the way that the game is going. There's still such upside for the women's game. The men's side has been a little bit ahead of the women, I think, in terms of craftiness and working on their skill set in terms of breaking people down one-on-one and those types of things. But was it a good experience for you as a coach, or was it frustrating? Is that why you got out? Talk about it. Because that's what I'm saying. There's a disconnect, right? I'm old school, right? And I know how to grind. You know how to grind. You know how to play street ball. And now it's AAU, and it's organized, and you play at 2:00 and 5:00, and you don't have to wait an hour and a half before you play again if you lose. Because if you lose on the streets, you got to wait an hour and a half. You're pissed. You learn things differently. And I personally would like to get back to the Power Five. Not get back. I've never been to the Power Five level, but I coached college ball a long time. I think from a player development standpoint, a mental health, emotional, and player development standpoint, I see your ring there on your right hand there, by the way. No, it's good. Isn't that a championship ring? What is that? That's a big ring.
It's a championship ring. I won the conference championship as a head coach at Clark Atlanta University.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. That's amazing. But anyways, my point was that there's just a disconnect between the old school player and the new school player. Or was it just something that didn't connect with your vibration and you just didn't feel like that was long-term in the plans for you?
Initially it was long-term, but I got into it for all the right reasons. And when you not understanding the intricacies of administration and how they work, you guys may not see eye to eye. And then the kids, a lot of the kids, I won't even say the kids, but the parents of the kids, and it is the players. It just got to be too much pulling. It got to be too much.
Is this high school?
No, this was college.
Oh, you were starting in college.
Yeah,
okay.
I was never an assistant coach. I started out as a head coach at a JUCO, which was probably my best experience as a coach at the JUCO level.
Yeah.
I had a great athletic director who gave me a chance. And the team, I was the only Black person on the team.
Wow.
And they had only won, myself and my assistant coach, they had only won about 7 games combined in 2 years before I got there. And so that first year, we won like 26 games. We won our conference, and we were ranked in D1 JUCO for the first time in school history.
Wow.
Which that was not even a plan. It was just, how we played. But those kids they were kind of like me. They were from the country. They didn't have a whole lot. They just wanted somebody to believe in them. They worked extremely hard. They did everything I asked them to do. Even when they weren't hard to discipline, when they made a mistake, they owned up to it. If we had to run for something, it wasn't.
At a JUCO too. That's amazing.
At a JUCO. I mean, it was the best experience. Now there were a couple who quit.
Yeah.
Because they, I came in and of course you have to prove to me, like you have to earn earned my trust, and I gave it to you, but
Change
just
the
because you
culture.
started, just because you started last year doesn't mean that you're going to automatically start now. And
Right.
I had a young lady on that team and on my D1 team that I coached come to me and tell me that she needed me to make her upset for her to play. And I thought that was the dumbest thing that I had ever heard in my life. Like, so you want me to take time out of my preparation, game preparation, to make you upset so that you'll be motivated to play hard. I didn't, I understand that.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And so I went to a D1 school, and all the schools that I worked at were low resource schools.
Right.
I didn't understand about guarantee games. So my first year, again, took over a team that hadn't had a winning season in like 13 years.
Where is this?
This is at Southeastern Louisiana.
Right.
So the coach who had been there, she went to school there. She was beloved by the community. So I come in, I'm the first Black head coach in the history of the school in any sport, and nobody wants me there. So it was that challenge.
Because you were Black or because you were a woman?
I don't know. Probably both. And I wasn't from there. And I was very outspoken about things that I felt like were just, could be done better. Mm-hmm. And there are lots of things that I did not know, a lot of questions that I should have asked that I didn't ask going in. And it probably, had I known then what I know now, I wouldn't have even applied for the job because I wasn't a good fit. I wasn't a good fit for that job, and that job was not a good fit for me. And that's just what that was. And we did really well academically. We had a player to go overseas and play professionally. Wow. So we had some good things. They just couldn't transfer over to the court. And so after that, I went to Clark Atlanta University. I took a year off and I went to Clark Atlanta University as the head coach there, took over a team that hadn't won. And my first year, the year before they finished last, my first year there, we finished first in the conference, won the championship, won the tournament, went to the NCAA tournament, had all kinds of academic awards, had a lot of kids, we had newcomer of the year, freshman of the year, all conference. So we did really well.
So you have limited scholarships at D2.
Extremely limited.
Man alive.
Very limited scholarships. And my second year, we had a lot of freshmen. Just kind of revamped the team. A lot of them left because there was no money. Some of them left because of me, because I would change, again, coming in, changing the culture and just not really setting a culture of discipline, setting a culture of accountability. Yeah. You get a lot of pushback from that. And so that second year, it was just too much. The environment had become toxic. I had become toxic just with the administration. And then it was trickling over to the way I was leading the players, and it wasn't good. And I didn't get into it to be that kind of coach. So I was like, look, I had a meeting with myself, and I was like, look, if you're going to be in this, some things have to change. And if you can't change them, then you need to walk away. So I had another year on my contract, and I told them I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much. And then I had my own kids, my twins. So I was a single parent. I didn't have any family in Atlanta. So I was driving to all of our away games because my kids couldn't ride the bus. So I would have to pick them up early from school. Wow. And regardless of where our game was, I was driving 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 1 hour to the games, get there early, get my kids situated, prep the team, go coach, and then get in the car and drive. So it was a lot. It was a lot.
It was definitely a lot. Okay, so I want to pause there, come back to after that, the coaching stuff. But I want to rewind a little bit. So the WNBA had not started yet. And so the ABL was a thing. Mm-hmm. And so talk about because a number of people we've had on the show have played in the ABL, Crystal Robinson and Val Whiting and others. And so talk about that experience and then how it transitioned to the WNBA, because we just finished a historic 25th season and so many of the things that happened in the wobble, changing two elections and getting an owner forced out, rightfully so, in Atlanta, and just women always being at the forefront. of advocacy, but now there's just a shift in terms of the strength in numbers. Whereas back in the day, if you did that kind of thing, you would have probably lost your contract, and your endorsements.
Absolutely. What endorsements?
Well, whatever side you were on, men's side or the women's side. But I'm just saying, like, if you would have been out on an island by yourself.
Absolutely. I love the strength of the players, and I love that they understand the power that they hold and that they're not afraid to exercise that power, because there's no league without players. And
can you imagine if you were playing right now, you would have been right in your element. You would have not been playing. You would have been like all in with regards to all of this stuff. But some people are apprehensive about, advocating for anything being marginalized. It's just a scary, courageous step to take for some people. But, it just seems like it's always been, something that's resonated with you even since you were young, to stand up for yourself.
I think just being an underdog your whole life and being, not considered valuable, and then you get to a space where you understand your own value and you see people or you see injustice at whatever level, it can be something small, and you're not afraid to speak up for it, because I operate from the space of, I would want someone to do it for me. If I couldn't advocate for myself, I would hope that God would put someone in my life who would advocate for me, who had the power to do it and who had the heart and the willingness to do it. And I have children who are one day going to have to navigate this world without me. And I don't know what situations they may find themselves in. And I would want someone, I pray that should they ever find themselves in a situation where they can't advocate for themselves and they need that someone would step up for them. So that's the space that I operate from. And I don't believe that because I had this reputation of, oh, she's hard to get along with. No, I'm not if you're doing right by people. I'm just not going to sit back and let you mistreat me. And I won't let you mistreat, at the time you won't mistreat my kids, because I'm supposed to advocate for them. And if I don't, who's going to? These people entrusted their kids with me. And I didn't always there were times when I dropped the ball. And so because of that, I made sure when opportunities were present for me to stand up for them or speak up, I always did that. But yeah, I think that what players are able to do, and the fact that they understand that if I leave, the money's going with me, the money goes where the players are. And unfortunately, all this stuff has happened in our world, in our society, and that's still necessary. We're still fighting the same fight. But again,
well, it's not just you now, though. From my perspective, I've noticed that there's more advocacy from white people. Now,
absolutely.
There's not as much policy changes yet that we need to see, but there has been a shift. And to your point, this is a white issue at this point. White people still run this country. Yeah. They still run universities. They still run Congress.
They still run teams.
They still run teams. And so, in some sports realms, we're seeing a shift, but it's just not enough to level the playing field. And so, I think that's a really interesting point that you made. And, I definitely agree with you with regards to that. But how was it when you first started out as one of the pioneers of the W, though?
When you say how was it, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, obviously from a pioneer standpoint, you were, doing something that no one else can say they ever did.
So I don't think it resonated with me, the magnitude of what we accomplished until we won that championship.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first ever WNBA championship. When you think about what team won there's only one first.
That's what I mean.
There won't ever be a first WNBA championship. right? There won't ever be a first back-to-back WNBA championship team, right? There won't ever be a first back-to-back championship WNBA championship team. I don't know any team that's won 4 straight since then. The comments. Yeah. So it's always life is lived forward but understood backwards. So you don't understand the magnitude of what you're a part of until we're having these conversations, you know. And you think about the women who, even like Tina and Cynthia and Lisa, they were making, I think the max was like 50,000 or something like that. That's not in addition to whatever endorsements that they had, you know what I'm saying? And someone like me, I think my first salary was like $8,000 for the year, 8 to 10, maybe something like that for the year.
Unbelievable.
There was no health insurance after that. There was no, when the season was over, you go find you some other way to live, and then you come back, and then you had to try out again for the team, the same team. So only the top 2-3 players were protected. So you definitely were playing for literally for your life. You were playing for your livelihood. You were playing for the love of the game. And it didn't matter that we were only making whatever we were making. The fact that we got to play in the WNBA at home, professional athlete in front of our family on, you know, American soil. We didn't have to go overseas if we didn't want to. That was an option. So that part was what was most important to me. I can't speak for anybody else, but just, and for me personally, just on a personal level, you know, my college career, I had 3 knee surgeries. You know, I tore my meniscus 3 times. When I went to go try out for the Houston Comets on May 11th, my youngest daughter was just 4 months old. So I had just had a baby and was told, don't even come to the tryouts. You don't have a chance of making the team, you know? And so just making the team was, you know, enough for me. Just my own personal, that was my own personal championship. And then I started out as a practice player. So I didn't travel. I didn't get to suit up on the games until like July 7th, 1997. Wanda Guyton hurt her back or something and she couldn't play. And so I got moved up to the team. I only averaged about a minute a game my first year. And then my second season, I averaged like 17 minutes a game. So, you know, just, I had my own personal victory, just earning a uniform, you know?
Oh man, what an inspiring story. Oh, I just absolutely love it. And how far we've come in 25 years to see the collective bargaining change, and it's going to get even better the next time, which allows women to not only have insurance, but have benefits if they're moms and if they've had children, and get charter flights, which is ridiculous that they don't have that still. And, you know, just some things that just need to be automatic at this point, you know, but wow, we've come so far, and expansion is coming.
Awesome. Yes.
So we need that. And we need to expand roster sizes.
We need to expand desperately. I would like to see more players from my era coaching. I would like to see more players, like that's been my biggest, I don't want to say complaint, but my biggest ill with the W. I don't know who he was. Like they just recycled the same coaches, the old white men, or, you know, the older white women. And you saw very few former players on the sidelines. And I just didn't get that.
Yeah, that's why I was upset Crystal Robinson didn't get the job, even though Vicky's a great fit for Dallas. You know, Crystal should be coaching, you know, just as an example.
Exactly. I mean, but there are a lot of us, like, I would love to coach in the W. I don't want to go back to college because I don't want to have to babysit. But and then I wouldn't want to have to deal with, you know, like you know, administration, all it's just a lot. College is never ending. Like you're 24 hours. And so if you're going to be in that, you have to be fully dedicated, and it takes special people to do that. And I had my time, and that's just not where I am in my life. But coaching in the W would be like an awesome experience, something that I'm definitely open to. But I would love to see more former players get head coaching positions in the W. I mean, most of us have coached at the college level. We can do the job.
Oh, absolutely.
I just don't understand why there's this recycling of the same handful of people.
Yeah. But how'd you feel about Becky getting the Las Vegas job?
I was ecstatic. I would have been a lot happier had she become a head NBA coach just for
Me
what
too.
that would have meant. But
Absolutely.
that's a no-brainer. Like, how
Yeah.
could you not? Like that's a no-brainer. I don't know her personally, but of course I
Mm-hmm.
played when she played, and
Mm-hmm.
just to see her journey and
Oh.
what she's been able to accomplish as a coach and just as a woman in that space. I'm so happy for her.
Well, it's a testament to what happens when you're making other plans. She had an injury, and
Mm-hmm.
because of her injury, she started just watching the Spurs and being a
Right.
part of it. And Coach Pop was just like, man, I want her a part of our organization because of the way she sees the game and the way she communicates. And and look what happened after that. It's just amazing. I
Right.
want to ask you about this also because I was actually disappointed in Gino, to be honest with you. I don't know if you saw Muffin McGraw's comments about the ESPN bias towards Connecticut. And she made a comment about how she just felt like there was a bias towards UConn.
I
And
agree.
so there was, yeah, and I tend to agree also. And it's just sort of like in baseball, the Red Sox and the Yankees are always on television.
Yeah.
Or the Patriots forever were on television in football when Tom Brady was there. There is that kind of bias, but it is about numbers. And so
Yeah.
Gino waited 2 weeks and he came back hard and strong and basically was like, you think our 11 national championships are because of any kind of biases? And so if you haven't, seen the back and forth, then you probably can't comment on it. But
Yeah.
I was just sort of disappointed in Gino that he didn't, and obviously he had his differences with a lot of the women's coaches just because of,
Yes.
a variety of reasons. But I just wish he would have been a little bit more humble in his response and just been like, I understand where they might be coming from, but I just don't agree. Muffet was a great coach, just like Tara was and all the pioneers in the women's game. It was just sort of a bummer to, I understand talking shit, right? I'll talk shit with the best of them, but I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way.
But did you expect Gino to be anything other than himself?
No.
Yeah. So I hadn't seen the comment, but that's kind of who he is, and
Yeah.
that's to be expected. I think we give people room to be who they are, whether we agree or not. He could have definitely probably been more humble. Again, I didn't see the
Yeah.
comment. I don't know the context, but again, I wouldn't expect him to be anyone other than Gino. So it's a perfect
Yeah.
response for him.
Yeah. I guess it is.
Well, I mean,
But
you talk about the bias with ESPN when you have Rebecca Lobo calling all the games. I
right.
mean, what do
Absolutely.
you expect?
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Let me pivot a little bit real quick before we get to the rapid fire. And I want to ask you about Amazon because I think that's interesting. I'm reading a book called On the Clock, and it's about Amazon, this woman's experience at Amazon. And in a few chapters in, it's so interesting, or early on in the Amazon days. But, Asia Wilson and Kevin Love and Meta World Sandiford and others have talked about their mental health journey. We
Mhm.
just saw Antonio Brown take his jersey off and run off the field and show up at a basketball and at an NBA game the next day like nothing ever happened. And so we've seen a lot of examples of people committing suicide and just mental health in general. And obviously it was different back then when you
Yeah.
played. It was just sort of shut up and dribble. And so what are your thoughts about that now? Because you talked about how you'd like to be at the professional level, not the college level. And the college level is where we see a lot of these things, and the coaches are having to navigate these mental health spaces in a way that they never have before. And professionally as well, there's things in place that you didn't see back when you were playing.
Right.
And so are we doing a better job, not just as a whole, but in the Black and brown communities in normalizing mental health and demystifying how we maybe saw it in the old days and how we should see it now?
I think definitely we're doing a better job because there's so much awareness about it, and people are open to talk about it. And what I love most about these college players is they're not afraid to say, look, I need a mental health day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm experiencing this. And there are so many resources available. Before, if you go into the counseling office, if you're going to the the counseling center, it's like, oh, well, you must be crazy, something must be
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And it's yeah, something is wrong, but that doesn't mean that I'm crazy. Like anxiety is very real. Depression is very real. There's a lot of pressure to perform. People who have never been an athlete could never understand that pressure. They think, oh, well, you're making all this money, so you should be happy. There are millionaires who don't play sports, who are millionaires in business or inherited. They blow their brains out all the time. They're super unhappy because money doesn't fulfill you. And most players who are playing the sport, especially at the professional level, you don't get to that level just for the money. You get to that level because you absolutely love the game and you want to get, like, that's the next level of competitiveness. That's the ultimate, that's the pinnacle. So you go, and the money just happens to be what is a part of it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot more that needs to be done. I think that every team, professional and college-wise, should have a sports psychiatrist or psychologist dedicated to the team.
Absolutely.
I think that that's what's necessary. I think that things should be like, if a player needs to take a mental health day, then you take a mental health day. It happens now in corporate America. So why not? That's their job. When you're in college, you're an athlete. That's what's paying for your scholarship. That's what's paying for your tuition. That's your job. So there are some times when the weight of it all, now what we have to understand is that these people are people. These athletes are still people. While we're out here entertaining you and performing for you, we still have a whole family with family issues, with day-to-day issues, with kids who have issues just like your kids have, with spouses who have issues just like your spouse have. So just because I'm an athlete, it does not negate or keep me from having to experience life,
right,
just like a person who is not an athlete. So I think that we're often judged from the waist down, and or from the neck down. As athletes, we're judged based on how fast we can run, how high we can jump, how far we can swing, how hard we can hit a ball, how far we can throw, how much we can swing, like all of those things. And then you forget that we're freaking human beings, just like you. If you take away the sports, if you take away this championship ring, you take away any of the things that we talked about, for me, that I've accomplished in my life, I'm still Yolanda. I don't play basketball anymore. I couldn't say let's play because my knees won't. I don't coach anymore, but I still have children. I'm still a mom. I'm still living my life, and I still have things that affect me the same way that athletes do. And so I think that there needs to be a little bit more grace given to athletes, and stop saying, oh, well, you're making all this money, so you should be happy. When has money really made anybody fulfilled? Having $1 million, making $25 million a year doesn't make my grief any less if my mom dies than somebody who's making $25,000 a year. Money can't make that. Money can't fix that. So I think that there needs to be a lot more grace given to athletes, and that's why we fight so hard, or we struggle so much when we're done with sports, because people only see us for what we can do in terms of entertainment. You don't see us as people. I'm a whole person. You take away LeBron's millions or billions or whatever, he's still a husband and a father with real responsibilities, with real emotions, all of these things. And so the pressure, the battle within to make sure that you stay grounded, the battle to not give into the pressure of, I've got to perform, and I've got to be a mom, or I've got to be a dad, and I've still got my obligation to the team. I've still got I just played, and my son is in the hospital, but my endorsement contract says that I've got to be out here signing autographs for an hour and a half when my son just got rushed to the hospital. And if I leave, then I'm going to be on ESPN saying that I left and I dropped the ball, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I hope that answered your question. I'm not sure if it did or not.
No, I mean, it's an incredibly powerful and passionate answer. You didn't just answer it. You can hear it in your voice, how important it is to you. Because, you see, I've talked about this before, and there's other examples, but, Doc Rivers is crying at the podium. LeBron James is afraid for his kids. Right. Like, what does money have to do with the fact that you're still Black? Exactly. And you still are going to get pulled over like anybody else if you're racially profiled, and that, you may lose a son, or you may get shot yourself if you're pulled over, and you that could have been you instead of George Floyd. Exactly. So that's just one example, but I 100% agree with you, and I appreciate that response. And I think everyone, well, if you don't resonate with that response, then you better get educated, because that's the reality of the situation. And I think a lot more teams, both intercollegiately and professionally, have those things in place, but not all do. I've talked to people on this show and they say it is not across the board, which is mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I've talked to friends who coach in the WNBA and the NBA, and it's not across the board there either.
That's unbelievable. So you want to talk about Amazon at all? That's a very interesting gig to me.
Sure. What do you want to know?
So what's your responsibility, and how has the company embraced you, and what have you learned from your past that you bring to the table?
So actually I am a project manager. It's called a program manager, but project manager. So I develop leadership training for finance managers and financial analysts that work in the fulfillment centers throughout North America, United States, and Canada. And so I work with a lot of different departments to find out what the training needs are, identifying the gaps, and then pulling in resources together to provide that training for our employees, which our employees are the finance managers and senior financial analysts. So,
wow. Man, I gotta let that breathe for a second. I'm trying to digest all that. That is incredible. I mean, for a company to go from selling books,
right,
and CDs to oh my God. Can you talk about, just real quick, what it's like to be in one of those centers where everything is being grabbed and oh my God. I want to go. When I was a kid, we used to go on these tours,
right,
of all these different companies, and you watch the machinery do its thing. And like, I can't imagine being in a new age facility like that, where you are getting something that you ordered on your phone in 5 to 10 hours or the next day. Like, there's millions of people ordering at the same time. Like, what are those factories? Is it called factories or warehouses? What are they like?
Fulfillment centers, sort centers. They have different names, but I toured one for the first time because I work remotely. So the team that I was on at the time, this summer, we met in Seattle. So that was one of the things that we did. We toured facilities, and I had never been in one before. They are massive, like the size of 2 football fields. And it's like conveyor belts, and it's so fascinating because of the technology that's in there, which of course I can't talk about. Not that if I could talk about, I would know what I was talking about, because I can't explain it, but I just know that there is something like watching, like you said, like watching them move packages. And they're like, you see the packages coming down at one time, and then they all go off into these different tunnels, and they all know where they're going. And
that's mind blowing.
Even watching the packages get boxed, like boxes being created around, like it was the most fascinating thing. But then the people who are in there, who have to not only operate or monitor the machines, but have to do some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff by hand, and they are moving. It's like a well-oiled machine. It was one of the most fascinating and tiring things that I've ever seen, because you talk about 2 football fields, like top to bottom, like you're walking this. And I'm like, there are people who walk this every single day, and they love their jobs.
Wow.
Like they love, that whole idea of customer obsession is definitely felt through, it permeates throughout the company, whether you're at the corporate level or in the fulfillment center. It's everybody knows that, look, Yolanda ordered her package at 2:00 today, and she's expecting it at 10:00 tonight. So we got to be on it.
Man, that is, oh God, that would definitely be on my bucket list, to go in one of those fulfillment centers and watch that action. That would be amazing.
Yeah, if you're able to, I would definitely suggest you do, because it was mind blowing. Then just the different kinds of facilities that they have. Yeah, Amazon is an amazing company.
It really is. All right, let's get to the rapid fire. Oh, fascinating conversation. Pat Summitt or Gino?
Pat.
Well, I had to ask. Yeah. How good is Paige?
I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
Beckers? Yeah.
I mean, I've watched her play like 3 times. Once when she was in high school, and twice since she is everything that she's hyped up to be.
But what is the intangible that takes to not only be in the W, which obviously she's headed on a path to go there, but what to be in the Sue Bird or, that type of guard company, what is that intangible that it takes to really be a Hall of Famer?
I think that mindset that I am the mindset that I am the greatest, I am the best. Like that has to be, literally that Muhammad Ali mentality, like I am the greatest, whether you believe it or not, I believe it. I think that if you look at Sue Bird and if you look at Sue and if you look at, Phoenix, Diana, Taurasi, they both have it. It just comes out in very different ways. Sue is very subtle.
Yeah.
She's very subtle, not as braggadocious, but very matter of fact in her ability. Like she's
Absolutely.
very, very confident. Diana's going to show you and tell you. Absolutely. Sue is going to show you, and she might tell you every now and again, but Diana's going to tell you and she's going to show you. But they walk with that confidence. I think that it comes from having won so much at high school level and then at college. And then like, this is just the next, this is just the evolution of my game. And I'm gonna go here and be better than I was, there. That's the mentality.
It's interesting. When I watch Steph Curry early in his career, because I see Paige and Steph very similar in terms of how they play, just silky smooth, effortless. The game just looks like they're not even trying and they're scoring 28 points before you know it.
Right.
But Steph was at a level, that we didn't really know if he was the main reason, that they were winning, or if, he was as transformational as MJ or even LeBron or Larry Bird or Magic, on the men's side, and on the women's side, you just mentioned a couple of the people that transformed the game and how people have followed in their footsteps ever since. But Steph Curry didn't have his mouthpiece sideways out of his mouth until I feel like people were disrespecting him and calling him soft. And he took his swagginess, if that's a word, to another level. And I feel like Paige is starting to do the same thing. Like I didn't see the Tiger Woods fist pumps early on, as she was sort of being humble.
Finding
her way. And so now I see her sort of getting that little Steph Curry edge to her. And I think maybe that's part of the formula. You gotta have some pushback when you're looked at as soft or, small, or like, they're trying to punk you, what I mean? Or white for that matter. Cause a lot of white players still try and get punked.
Yeah. That's absolutely. I agree with what you just said. I believe wholeheartedly that that's it. Yep.
All right, Cheryl or Lisa?
Cheryl.
So I know they're sort of different positions, but Diana or Maya Moore?
Ooh, I love Maya.
Oh my God.
She was so cold. Like she was so smooth. I'm gonna go with Maya. I love Diana too, but I gotta go with Maya.
Shout out to Maya for what she's done off the court and her advocacy work and the courage. And she was doing it for a long time with her current husband. It wasn't like something she just did because of George Floyd. She's been doing it for like 14 years.
Right.
Yeah. Mad props to her. Amazing person. LeBron or MJ?
MJ. Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah, not Magic.
Michael Jordan.
Okay.
That's my era. So
I understand that. But is there anything that LeBron can do for the rest of his career that would ever surpass him?
Oh, I'm sure. But in
your eyes, though, no.
Oh, in my eyes.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, like they're equally great in my eyes.
Yeah.
But just because Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan for me, just like how LeBron is LeBron for people, for kids now, so it was back when basketball was a contact sport, when they had to really, really, like when they played, even if it wasn't the playoffs, it was a good game. The bad boys. Yeah. Right. Gotcha. So, I love what LeBron stands for. I love his image. I don't know him personally, but just the things that he's done with his platform and, and give back and all those things. And I won't compare personally because that's his call. MJ does his thing. That's his call. You do what you want to do with your money and your platform.
Absolutely.
And we don't have to know. It's not up to us to judge. I love LeBron. I love MJ. If you want to know my heart, it's Kobe. Like either one of them, if I had to pick, it would, and Kobe was in the equation, it's Kobe. But you gave me MJ and LeBron, so I'll take MJ.
So it's funny you mentioned him. That was my next question in terms of how the loss affected you.
Oh gosh, it was so just somebody, again, I didn't know him, but I loved the fact that he was himself. He did not, like, even from a kid coming into the league, he knew what he could do. He had a plan. He knew what he was capable of. He knew what he wanted his career to look like. He did not let what the opinions of other people, deter him from becoming the greatest. He didn't feel bad for wanting to be okay. One of my favorite quotes that ever in the history of the world is "It's okay to be great." And Cynthia, my teammate Cynthia Cooper, like, it's okay, because sometimes we're shunned for wanting to have accomplished individual goals when you're a part of a team. But it's okay. Like, it's why wouldn't you want to be the best at what you do? Like, what are you doing it for?
Absolutely.
I mean, like, why not? So it affected me in the fact that, all of us are going to have to pass that way. Like, it's none of us are exempt from death. And so,
but he reinvented himself, though, especially with girls and women too,
and the things that he was doing with he won an Emmy, like the things that he was doing in business, and he left his mark. I think in any way, if it impacted me in any way, it made me question, Yolanda, what are you doing to impact the world? Like, when you die, what's going to be your legacy? Will people know, outside of your family and people who know you, will people know that you were here? And so my answer was, no, I got some work to do. So
I feel that. Well, and that's why we pivoted with this show, because after George was murdered, I was like, I can't just talk about something that's irrelevant an hour and a half later.
Right.
We got to talk about some more things and have some fun at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kenny, Shaq, Charles, or Ernie?
I like Ernie because he is, Ernie
He's the voice of reason.
Yeah, he is. But I like all of them, but Ernie is my guy.
That's hilarious. Jeffersons or Good Times?
Jeffersons.
Wheezy.
Yeah.
All in the Family or Sanford and Son?
Sanford and Son. How could you ask me such a thing?
I mean, All in the Family was a groundbreaking show. Come on. I mean, it was.
I love Archie Bunker. Don't get me wrong, but Fred is my dude.
Fred was,
okay. Fred
God.
is my dude.
Elizabeth. So is there better food in Port Gibson, Houston, or Orlando?
Houston.
Wow. So I took a trip through Houston real quick, and I had no idea that there was a 2 HOV lane and a 3 HOV lane. And I accidentally went into the 3 when I only had 2 people in the car, but it saved me 5 hours. There was
I bet. You talk about a 2-person HOV lane and a 3-person HOV lane versus 8 other lanes.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've never seen any kind of traffic like that in my life. Okay. Well, who's your favorite player in the W right now?
Ooh, I like Skylar. I like Candace because I felt like Candace came back. She reinvented herself as a player and people had written her off. And what she went to Chicago and did was just amazing to me. Amazing. So I would have to say Candace Parker.
And she just changed her whole attitude too. Like she didn't seem upset anymore. She just seemed like, man, at peace.
Yep.
All right, a couple more. Best advice a coach ever gave you. What's your biggest regret in life?
My biggest regret in life is that I did not develop a relationship with God sooner. Like, I wish I had gotten closer and understood that my identity was rooted in Christ when I was in my 20s or when I was in college, because I would have made better choices for myself. That is my biggest regret, is that I didn't know Jesus sooner.
And so has he helped you navigate your anxiety and your anger and your sadness and your resentment from your childhood? Yeah, absolutely.
That and therapy, prayer and therapy. Absolutely. I go to therapy every week. Like I have, it's like maintenance, it's like going to get your hair cut to me. Even when something isn't wrong, but yeah, just understanding that.
But how did you get, hold on a second. Because that's important, because a lot of people say nothing's wrong with me, and you just said I go for maintenance. And my mom's been a psychotherapist for more than 40 years. And so she always says she's not worried about the people that come. She's worried about the people that don't come.
Absolutely.
And so, but how did you get to the point where you started going to therapy? Because you were in survival mode your whole life. And so now all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to go to therapy. Like,
well,
how did that happen?
I got diagnosed with anxiety and diagnosed with severe depression and was given Zoloft and all this other stuff. And I hate taking pills. So we're going to need to do something different. And I saw a therapist, like just out of the blue. And it's a lot of times people just need an objective place to dump, just an objective place just to get it all out. I don't really need advice. I don't really need your opinion. I just need to get it out. I just need to express. And then I need a voice of reason who doesn't have a dog in the fight. Because sometimes we'll go to family members and they'll give us a voice of reason, but it sways towards their opinion or what they want you to do. And so I think therapy, you develop coping skills and it makes you break down. Like you think you're angry when you're not angry, you're really hurt. Like you're really hurt. Like your feelings have been deeply hurt and you haven't dealt with that. And that's why you keep, especially when I got to a point where I kept experiencing the same, I get to the same point and then I would, kind of have the same,
repeat the cycle.
Okay, something's wrong. Something is off, something is off, but
ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
When you're an athlete, you have somewhere to put that stuff because you can put it on court, you can put it on the field, you can put it in lifting weights. But when you don't, and these things happen, it's like, well, hold on, what in the world? So
man, good for you. That is such a wonderful example to everyone, just to say you don't necessarily need advice. It's just a place to go dump, and just their job is to listen to you for an hour and give you their opinion about how you're doing. That's literally their job. So why wouldn't you go, especially if it's paid for?
Exactly. And the more you talk about something, you can tell when you're getting over it, when you're healing from it, because you don't have that emotion connected with that feeling anymore. But if you don't ever talk about it, if you're not ever allowed to release it and let it go, then you experience the rumination, you experience the same cycles. And it's like you're on a hamster wheel, you going fast nowhere. Like you're going nowhere fast, And
one thing people don't know is it affects you in so many ways down to the cellular level. And it can affect you with cancer and all kinds of things.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. Oh, that is fascinating stuff. We could talk about that forever. Did you change your diet also?
I drink more water. I get more sleep. There are some things that I don't eat. Like I don't eat a lot of fried foods. I don't eat a lot of junk. Like I was a sweet. Oh my God. I love some pies and cakes and cupcakes. Like I would go to Walmart and buy a birthday cake and eat it and dare my kids to touch it.
But you're talking about major changes that you made between therapy and not eating fried foods and more water. And I'm sure you're exercising and you're not on medication.
No.
Look at that.
But that was the thing. Like I didn't want to take the pills.
Right.
Like because I didn't want to become addicted. Like there has to be another way. I'm not taking Zoloft.
You have a favorite mama joke?
No, I don't.
How'd you like that transition? All right, I'll give you two. Your mom is so fat she jumped in the air and got stuck. Or your mom is so fat she had to iron her pants on the driveway.
The one about getting stuck. That's funny.
Oh man. Okay, last question. Two more questions, but they're pretty quick. Well, one of them's quick. So if you could have any 5 people at your dinner table, past or present, dead or alive, but they cannot be friends or family, who would be at your dinner table?
Michelle Obama.
Well, Jesus would be one, right?
Jesus, absolutely. Okay. But I talk to him all the time, so he's always there.
Right.
But so Jesus, Michelle Obama. Let's see, who else would I have? That's a Kobe Bryant. Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a famous he's a psychiatrist, but he talks about how you rewire your brain. And he all like how you can change your thoughts and heal yourself and all that kind of stuff. So I would love to have a conversation with him. And let's see, probably Bishop Jakes, TD Jakes.
Wow, man, that's an interesting group. That would be a phenomenal dinner table.
Yeah, it would be, I think.
And then, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? Last question.
Owning a multi-million-dollar training and development company.
Wow. Like training, like what you're doing now.
Yeah, like leadership training and development.
Leadership training, yeah.
Wow. A New York Times bestselling author, owner, just traveling and enjoying life and just empowering other people through speaking and writing and just enjoying my kids and being married. Definitely. I want to get married. Yeah.
Well, you just talked about a second ago about how your quote, say it again.
It's okay to be great.
And it is okay to be great. And you have exemplified that on so many levels, on so many layers. And I think a lot of the best is still yet to come. Just an amazing conversation. And whatever future endeavors you hope for yourself, I know that you're going to see them come to fruition. And I truly always appreciate, people don't know me, so I'm just an older white guy to most people. But, the more that we get people to come into the safe space,
right,
it lends some credibility to what we're doing. But I genuinely appreciate it every single time, especially we bet on women heavily, not only because I was raised by mostly women. My daughter's 11. I've been coaching on the women's side for 15 years at a low income first generation high school the last 6 years. And it's just been a wonderful experience to help me be a better version of myself. And it sounds like that's what you're doing every day, is you're a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. And just an amazing story. That bestseller is coming and that company is coming, I assure you.
Thank you. I received that. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
All right, I'm glad. And again, Happy New Year. And again, so honored that you were the 19th WNBA player to come on. And we're trying to work towards 25 because we really want to honor this 25th season. Dan Hughes is coming on Friday. And so
good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, we'll talk soon. How are the kids doing? They're all doing fine, right?
They're all doing fine.
They play sports?
They're starting basketball. So I have twins, a boy and a girl, basketball for him and volleyball for her.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. All right. Well, I can't wait to see how they do growing up. And that's going to be so interesting to see if they can follow in your footsteps. That would be amazing.
We'll see. All right, thank you so much.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
All right, everybody. Yolanda Moore, former ABL and WNBA player, joining us here in the Sports Deli. Oh, man, what a fascinating conversation. To have the women of the WBL and then followed up by Yolanda, that is just amazing. And just to hear her talk about so many things, it's very interesting because if some of you are listening, you're not watching, but I can pick up on energy. And so, in the beginning, when you don't know someone, the conversations, grow organically a lot of times, right? But sometimes, you just feel the vibration as, well, they're doing this because they have an obligation to do it, or they'd rather be doing something else. And then by the time it's over, it's like a whole different vibration. And how many people have said they really enjoyed coming on the show? So always appreciate that. All right. Until next time, we hope you enjoyed that, ladies and gentlemen. That was just an amazing conversation about a wide range of topics. And always appreciate you sharing space with us. Again, Happy New Year. Remember, Black Lives Matter. Stop the Asian hate. Stop the bullying. Contact your local or state politicians for any injustices that you feel are happening and any individual or group that you feel are being marginalized. And until next time, for Dr. J and Coach K, I'm Hootie Hoot. Remember, it takes a village. Peace.